Lock characters range in talents and skills dating back to the first selection. And going back to the first selection, each of the 5 teams in the final stratum had their core members that led each team to a decisive result in their matches. But out of all of those characters, where did they compare against each other? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be going over each of the core players during the first selection and ranking them from worst to best. Before I begin, I want to let you guys know about my Discord server that myself and other Blue Lock content creators run. There, we talk about Blue Lock, post our theories, and debate others, as well as display our artwork. It's also the best way for you to send in your personal video requests, that way myself or others can turn them into actual videos. If that's something that interests you, you can join by clicking the link at the top of the description to join and become a part of the community. Now, like in all of my videos, I want to leave a spoiler warning for up to chapter 38 of the manga or episode 11 of the anime, and if you aren't caught up to that point in the series, I would suggest clicking off this video right now because there will be spoilers. Now, before getting into the actual ranking, the first thing that we need to consider is who's going to be on this list. My ranking is only going to be consisting of characters who have contributed something significant to the series and had more than just one single outstanding play. These characters include Isagi, Bachira, Kunigami, Chigiri, Kakamaru, Raichi, Kuon, Baro, Nico, Okawa, both of the Wanima brothers, Zantetsu, Ryo, and Nagi. All of these players had contributed something significant during the first selection, and the remaining other players who I didn't name were just there to kind of fill up space. With that being said, ranked at the bottom of the list at 15th, we have Hibiki Okawa. Okawa was the main focal point of Team Y's offense and was utilized by Nico as the tool to hide his presence as Team Y's heart. Okawa's main weapon is called feint shooting, which allows for him to throw off the goalkeeper's timing by performing a chip shot as opposed to a more powerful one. This weapon has given Team Y the lead and let them initiate their plan of stalling out the game through passes. Aside from his one goal, Okawa really has no other feats that put him above any of the other characters on this list, and that does include the Wanima brothers. He mostly existed as a scapegoat with a weapon that Nico could utilize in his plan, and he really didn't have any other use aside from that, so he can easily sit as the last placer on this list. Now, coming in 14th and 13th place respectively, we have the Wanima brothers, with the younger brother being Kisuke Wanima at 14th and the older brother being Junichi Wanima in 13th. While both of the Wanima brothers were able to contribute 10 goals total in their time during the first selection, both of these players individually aren't really that good. Their strength comes from their core weapon being eye contact, where they can link up and coordinate tactics with only a simple glance. This weapon comes from their time growing up together, so when it comes to using this ability with anyone who isn't the other brother, it's pretty much just useless. Both of the brothers, along with the rest of Team W, were completely steamrolled by Chigiri's reawakening, even risking a lethal foul to win, but still losing. The only reason that I placed the older brother Junichi Wanima above the younger is simply because he survived the first selection as opposed to the younger brother, meaning he had more goals. And because he had scored more goals, he might have had the better finishing and better shooting ability as opposed to the younger brother. So because of that, I'm placing the Wanima brothers at 14th and 13th place in our ranking. Coming in 12th, we have the man who betrayed his team, that being Kuon. Now, despite Kuon's biggest feat, the hat-trick performance against Team W, being fake, I still think that overall, he's better than either of the Wanima brothers. During his time in the first selection, he functioned very similarly to Aryu, except he was just overall worse. His jumping weapon did allow for him to reach those high passes, and he was able to deliver powerful headbutts. He was also Team Z's original strategist, concocting the next up It's Me 9 plan. The reason that I put Kuon above either of the Wanima brothers is simply because his weapon isn't tied to another player, and he can use it at his own accord. Overall though, he still kinda sucks. Now, resting just outside of the top 10, we've reached the territory of somewhat good players, so in 11th place, we have Iki Nico. Nico during the first selection functioned very similarly to Isagi, as his eyes and brain were superior to the other players in terms of game reading. In the match against Team Z, he was the beating heart of the team, setting up plays and formulating strategies. Despite eventually losing, he was able to keep Team Z on their toes for the majority of the match. He also had managed to block Isagi's shot, despite it resulting in a pass for Kakamaru to poach. His arguably most impressive feat is becoming Team Y's top goal scorer after scoring 4 goals against Team X, resulting in their victory. How Nico was able to score 4 goals against Baro, I have no idea. What I do know is that he was a pretty good player during the first selection, which is why I have him in 11th place. Coming in at 10th place, we have the stamina freak himself, that being Raichi Jingo. Raichi comes in 10th place for not only providing Team Z's defense with the majority of its strength, but because he was one of the most clutch players during the first selection. With Raichi's core strength, he was able to suppress Ryo and his passes, making it easier to have Isagi, Naruhaya, and Igaguri mark Nagi, and allowing Chigiri the time to press Zantetsu with his speed. His incredible stamina was able to keep Team Z in the game, allowing for him to immediately press the loose ball before it went out of bounds. He was also able to quickly react to Zantetsu's acceleration and and move to block the shot. Now that we've reached the top 10, there isn't a lot of negative things I can say regarding these characters. The only thing I could say that reasonably keeps Daichi in 10th place is the fact that the majority of his insane performances were shown during the Team V match and he didn't really do much in the other games. He also didn't contribute much on offense, keeping the majority of his plays on the defensive side of things. But coming in 9th place, we have the clutchest player in the entire series, that being Gagamaru. While Gagamaru's performances weren't anything spectacular, they were incredibly significant to the game. He was able to quickly react to Izugi's failed shot in the Team Y match, allowing for Team Z to tie the game. His flexibility and reaction time also allowed for Gagamaru to hit insane passes that would typically be impossible, with them all being very close to scoring. He was also the very first offensive play initiated against Team V, meaning given the situation, he was the best striker to start the game with. But his clutchest play had to be saving Nagi's chip shot that faked out not only 2 defenders, but also the goalkeeper. This save led to Izugi getting the ball and starting Team Z's final rush. Now I do rank Gagamaru above Daichi because his performances extend prior to the Team V game, but even considering that game, I think Gagamaru performed better than Daichi did. Coming in 8th place, we have the second speedster in the series, that being Tsurugi Zantetsu. Zantetsu's abilities, despite his lack of game time prior to the NEL, are honestly really stacked. His explosive acceleration allows him to outpace even Chigiri for the first 6 seconds of his run, and his middle shot allows him to shoot from an angle that's difficult for the opposing goalie to catch. If you look at the episode Nagi's side story prior to the first selection taking place, Zantetsu was actually ranked the highest in the 5th stratum. Keeping with the episode Nagi's side story, Zantetsu really hasn't been stopped until the match against Team Z, where he just unfortunately had to be placed against a speedster who could match his pace. Prior to facing Team Z, his abilities allowed for him to score 5 goals and was still able to score 1 before Chigiri had figured out his weapon. Overall, Zantetsu is one of those characters who's really underutilized and can only be stopped under certain conditions. The only reason I'm placing Zantetsu in 8th place is because once Chigiri had figured out the trick behind his weapon, he really didn't have any use. Rounding off the top half of our list, we have in 7th place the main character of Blue Lock, that being Yoichi Isagi. Now obviously Isagi is an amazing player currently, however when looking at the first selection, he's unbelievably average. I mean, he didn't really understand his shooting weapon until the final goal of the first selection and acted more as a catalyst for the rest of his team. He was the brains behind their plans, using Bachira, Kunigami's, and Chigiri's abilities as extensions of himself to score goals. He was able to identify Nico as the main threat to Team Y, and he had predicted him in the rest of his plays during that game, which led to them winning. Because of Isagi, Chigiri had reawakened, allowing for them to tie against Team W, and I've already mentioned Isagi's feats against Team V. Overall, I think Isagi did really well, functioning as the brains of the team. However, as compared to the rest of the characters in the first selection, I really don't think that Isagi can hold a candle to him. Now coming in 6th place, just outside of the top 5, we have Rensuke Kunigami. Kunigami by the end of the first selection resided as Team Z's top scorer, scoring a total of 3 goals. While Kumon did end up scoring 3 goals during the first selection, I think we all know that those goals just really don't count. Kunigami's incredible physique allows him to leverage his body and his possession forward towards the net, allowing for him to rush to the perfect shooting zone for him to score. His lefty shooting allows him to perform direct power shots as well as knuckleball shots with no spin, even from outside of his direct shooting range. He was the only person to score against Team X, which thanks to a pass from Isagi, led Team Z to a realization of their own unique abilities. Overall, at this point in the series, nobody had a physique as strong as Kunigami's, which made it really easy for him to leverage his own. The reason for Kunigami being in 6th place is simply because the rest of the characters either did more or did better than Kunigami during the first selection. But now we've reached the top 5, and coming in 5th place, we have the Red Panther himself, Chigiri Hyoma. Looking at Chigiri's performance in the first selection, I would argue that he is either the best or second best player on Team Z, with the exception of Bachira. He only really began to try and play at the end of the match against Team W, meaning his feats are just as limited as Daichi. However, I think we can all agree that Chigiri is better than Daichi during the first selection. Chigiri's incredible speed allows for him to blaze past all of Team W, allowing for him to tie up the game against them as the clock struck 0. When facing off against Zantetsu, he was able to create a formula that allowed for him to outpace him and score his own goal. His speed is an incredible weapon, which forces several players to place a mark on him, making it easier for other players like Isagi and Kunigami to move up the field. There isn't a lot we can say regarding Chigiri's advantages with his speed, considering his playtime was very limited during the first selection. However, what we do know is that once Chigiri had started trying, the other team was at a significant disadvantage given his speed. And this incredible speed had been nerfed due to an injury, so his stamina and running speed were worse now than they were prior to his injury. A nerfed Chigiri was able to cause this much impact on the game, so yeah, I think he's deserving of being in the top 5. But coming in 4th place, we have the rich genius himself, Mikage Ryo. Now Ryo is here for a couple of reasons. The first being his incredibly high game IQ. Ryo's game IQ during the first selection was much higher and much more advanced than Isagi's was at this point in the series. This was seen with him being able to deduce the importance of the tag game after a few moments of it starting. He was also able to find the trick behind Zantetsu's weapons that would allow for him to play better. And combined with his dexterity, he was able to easily replicate simply constructed plays that allow for Nagi to score fairly easily. Even with Raichi and Isagi pressuring Ryo, he was still able to make passes that allowed for Nagi or Zantetsu to continue the play. During the first selection, Ryo was obviously the better playmaker and director on the pitch as compared to Isagi, as he was able to reach this level after only playing for a few months. So for that, I think he comfortably sits in 4th place. Coming in at a 3rd place spot is a player who I think really deserves to be here, that being Meguru Bachida. Bachida's elastic dribbling, aside from being one of the most satisfying weapons to see in the series, is also the most technical weapon that we've seen at this point in the story. Bachida using this weapon was able to completely 1v11 the entirety of Team V, beating both Ryo and Zantetsu with ease. And from what we see of him in the future, this was his base stage dribbling, founded by following a monster's intuition. His passes were also the nexus of chemical reactions, as shown with his chemical reaction between Isagi as well as Gagamaru, feeding the offensive line's plays. Isagi even said Bachida's dribbling allows him to slice through enemy lines, opening up lanes for passes to finishing players like Isagi or Kunigami. I don't think there's a single argument you can make saying that Bachida does not deserve to be in the top 3 during the first selection, so I think putting him at 3 is perfect. Coming in at number 2, we have the king of Blue Lock, that being Bado Shoei. Bado is one of the most pure strikers that we've seen in the series. Despite his little game time that he had during the first selection, he most definitely stood by that statement. With his powerful charge, he was able to blow past the mosh pit of Team X and Team Z, and with his incredible technical ability, was able to single-handedly dribble through the remaining Team Z players to score a goal. Through the support of his team, he was able to put up 5 goals in that match alone. Bado was the absolute pinnacle of the first selection, being a player that Isagi viewed as perfection and someone to learn from when relating to his scoring formula. He's currently tied for 1st place in relation to total goals scored during the first selection, and as of this point in the series, has scored the most goals out of anyone in the Blue Lock series. With these contributing factors, Bado Shoei is easily one of the best players in the first selection, which is why I have him ranked at 2nd. But without a doubt, the best player in the first selection is Nagi Seishiro. First selection, Nagi was an absolute beast, shown with his incredible trapping and powerful controlled shots. Being tied for the top goal scorer in the first selection along with Bado, Nagi's genius level skill and performance is what puts him above Bado. Throughout the majority of his matches, Nagi was able to score goal after goal while not even trying, performing bicycle kicks and trap shots like they were nothing. When Nagi actually begins trying and being invested in the game, as shown against Bado, Nagi's potential skyrockets, leaving him with absolutely no rival. And this was only after 6 months of playing the sport and even less time being invested in it. So without a doubt, during the time in the first selection, Nagi Seishiro is easily the best player. But with that, that was my personal ranking of the key players during the first selection. I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. Also, how do you guys like this new backdrop? This is my college room now, and this is what you're going to be seeing for the majority of my videos for a while, so I hope you guys do enjoy it. Now, I want to do another video like this with the second selection character, so if that's something that you're interested in, leave a like down below to let me know. For the question of the video, what goal from the first selection was your favorite? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe for more content just like this.